Last weekend, my partner and I went LARPing for the first time. The event was called Empire, and it's the biggest of its kind in England. The first installment was in 2013 with 4 events every year. Since its origin, it has grown from 1,000 visitors to about 4,000 in 2024. It is currently located at Dadford Road campsite in Silverstone, a small village an hour and a half north of London, known for its Formula 1 tracks. The site is divided into 2 categories. The out-of-character area includes campsites with modern tents, food trucks, toilets, car parks, and administration tents. The in-character area is divided into 10 nations, each comprised of about 100 tents. These tents are used for sleeping, shops, and bars. Lastly, there is the battlefield, wherein heroes go to fight monsters, which are volunteers dressed up as orcs. The video serves as a logbook of what we experienced, presented alongside my personal speculations of their meaning. By doing this, I will loosely touch upon many expansive subjects, while letting you, the audience, make your speculations. I would love to hear these in the comments. I chose to not show any pictures for the sake of privacy, and due to the obvious fact that I didn't take any photos during the event, as using a smartphone broke the immersion. Because of this, all the characters are represented as AI-generated portraits based on my memory that represents the spirit of the players that we encountered. The weekend before the event, we started making our characters. If you have seen my past videos, you won't be surprised to learn that I chose the role of an elven architect. To write a convincing backstory, we had to read up on a great deal of lore of the world of Empire. This was quite overwhelming. My nation, the Immersion, had, for instance, a 100-page long PDF full of links to further reading. We went shopping for fabrics and costumes in charity shops, and I even sewed my own armor. This was our first step into the world of Empire. My character was named Julius, and my partner's name was Tamiris. We arrived at Empire with a shuttle bus and walked till we found a free space to pitch our tents. As we were setting up, a great many people walked past us in full costumes. We could feel the excitement in the air. Eventually, we followed them down to the administration tent next to the festival's entrance. There we joined a long queue of attendants in the most magnificent costumes. Our neighbors in the queue ranged from other first-time attendants to a mother of 2 who had come to Empire for over 10 years. Speaking to her was our first glimpse at the seriousness of the endeavor. I asked her about how the festival had changed since its foundation, whereupon she started giving me a lecture on how the constellations of the stars had changed, altering their religion and magic. The other first-timer and I looked bewildered at each other. We reached the end of the line and were given our starter kits consisting of coins and resources fitting our characters that we had created online beforehand. We were finally ready to enter Anvil, the in-character area of the festival. The first person we met was one of the elders of Immersion. His opening line was, "Greetings! I am amassing votes for the senator election of Zenith." And we struggled to keep our faces straight, as it was just the lingo we had been joking about on the train ride earlier that day. While these encounters were in the beginning somewhat intimidating, as we were worried we would reveal our ignorance and even ruin the other players' experience by taking them out of their world, the roleplay also left us vulnerable to each other. Would my partner judge me if I was too into it? As we went exploring further, we were waved over by 2 free folk. They sat lounging on beanbags, drinking cocktails. We purchased 2 drinks and joined them by the fire. They both casually flowed in and out of character, which was a relief for us newcomers. They explained that they did not bother with all the politics and battle. Instead, they were just there to socialize in a strange setting. They had attended for several years, and several people came up to them. One such person was an old trader, selling a piece of paper listing the average prices of the different resources that were traded. In other words, here was someone who did a market analysis and made a living of selling this analysis. Quite remarkable, I thought. Anvil is indeed a capitalistic city with a complete in-game currency system that allows you to sell everything from beverages to imagined infrastructure projects in your fictional hometowns. This reminds me of a statement by Slavoj Žižek that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. Even in the world of elves and orcs, capitalism endures. We might conclude that the capitalistic system emerged in what was originally a blank slate from when the empire was first started, but there are two crucial factors that influences it. Firstly, the game was designed with the currencies and set rules for how currency is used, meaning the creators themselves, knowingly or unknowingly, recreated what they already knew. Secondly, the festival is of course interfaced with the outer world, as all the products traded there are originally bought or produced outside. We left the camp of the free folk and ventured into the forested area of the site. It had gotten dark by that time, and we stumbled over roots until we came upon a dimly lit bar run by two orcs. Their latex masks made me completely forget that there was a human behind them. We stood there as an elf and an orc chatting merrily about the busy forest around, and I noticed how some of his effortless acting made it easier for us to get into character as well. The masked orc I spoke to might have been a plumber, or he might have been a lawyer. What I'm saying is that the mask and costumes work to remove any social divides existing in our real world, creating a completely new way of relating to one another, shuffling the card just like a medieval carnival. The orc walked us to the neighboring camp's Songs and Stories, a circle of benches surrounded an open floor with a fire in the middle. As we sat there, different people stood up, some to tell humorous stories, others to sing and play the guitar. What struck me was that these were people who most likely were not prone to performing in the outside world. They used the character to embody different traits to empower them to break free. We spoke to another player on how he had used his political career in the Empire to improve his public speaking skills in the real world. I think this is a powerful aspect of roleplay. Fantasy is often described as escapism, epitomized by the video game allowing an escape from a disempowered existence to a space where one is in control. With LARPs, however, these experiences are embodied and can rewire the brain. LARPers refer to an idea of brave space as opposed to safe space. In the brave space, one is challenged, but within a safe environment, allowing for self-development. At the camp, we met up with two young people dressed up in green cloaks. We followed them to another performance known as smut reading. Here, drunken patrons of the local bar read out erotic short stories involving fictional characters from the world of Empire. A group of young players were gathered there, giddily discussing the performances and questioning each other about their sexual preferences. Many of them were cross-dressing, often with brightly colored hair and skimpy costumes. Like the previous performance, here the roleplay allows for sexual experimentation, following many features from queer and BDSM spaces, focused on careful consent. Someone told us that they even have in-character relationship, that they only meet up at the events. They said sometimes they send letters to each other between events. At lunch the next day, we went into a tavern. Across our table sat a child of around 12 years old, next to his mother. He was bragging to some intrigued strangers about his magical artifacts, and I remembered from my own childhood that the best conversations were when adults took you seriously. For me, this often happened while discussing Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings with my dad's friends. Fiction, I think, and fantasy in particular, have a unique ability to do this. At this point, Tamiris and I split ways. She went to join the Wizard's Coven, while I went to see if I could partake in a battle. I found the help of a particularly generous man in his 50s who had brought a dozen chainmails and swords to lend new players. Our mission started at 9 PM. It was dark and it had started to rain, and so the ground was muddy. It was 70 of us standing in a line preparing to run through a gate and onto the battlefield. There we were met by orcs in heavy plated metal armor swinging big axes. We were quickly overpowered as we were pressed backwards. I was hit in the leg, which meant that I had to fall down. Then I was quickly beaten to death by the soft tips of two latex swords. I lay there in the wet grass, and the battle moved past until an orc came and executed me. I returned to the admin tent to make a new character. There I found Tamiris waiting. She recited her experience of searching for me after the battle. She had been comforted by her new mage friends, who directed her to the hospital. The medics had not seen me and told her with compassion that I was likely dead and where she could find me. Tamiris told me that the stormy night sky, the mud, and the players cursing the skies for the outcome of the battle made for a powerful and dark ambience. Tired of all the events, we went back to our tents to hide away from the cold rain. On our last day, we had a cup of tea while waiting for our bus. We sat down next to an old man who lacked several teeth. He was still proudly wearing his armor, boasting of the many battles he had partaken in. I asked him what his main reason for LARPing was, and he told us that the community was like a big family. And I must say that we got the same impression. It was a place of extreme kindness, a giant safe space. At the core of the community is a big group of neurodiverse people, and everything is built up from respecting each other's quirks. As we were leaving the festival, I was wondering about the role of fantasy in all this. I have been to other somewhat anarchic festivals before with similar traits, but the fantasy, costume and committed roleplay gave a very distinct feeling. Whereas other festivals often rely on drugs to put one out of its normal state of being, Empire did so purely through roleplay. Rousseau once wrote a text about how the carnival was replaced by theatre, which in turn obviously would be replaced by movies. People were no longer partaking in the world making, turning us into passive observers. With LARP, however, everyone is involved in bringing this different world into existence. My partner and I felt like we didn't yet manage to contribute very much, and remained more in the role of spectators, but we did feel inspired to try again in the future. And personally, I would like to see it as an opportunity to bring my fantasy architecture one step closer to the real world. I hope you liked this video, and if you do, please like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel grow. Let me know in the comments what you think. Have you ever gone to a LARP? Or maybe have I convinced you that you should? I will see you next time.